May I have your attention? And may I also invite the speakers of the second panel to the stage. Ambassador Churchill from Cameroon, please. Engineer Melaku, Precious Teferi. And on the screen, we already have Ms. Otto. Could you please join the stage? All right, thank you so much. Welcome to our second panel. In the second panel, we want to look much closer to the private sector after we talked a bit more meta level. In the first panel, before we begin, I would like to share one information with you, and some of you might have grabbed when they came the policy brief by UNECA and CAS. I think this is a very powerful line, and let me read this to you in a moment. So according to this policy paper, rather according to the UNECA, ECA estimates forecast that the establishment of the AfCFTA could increase intra-African freight demand by around 28% compared with the, I'm sorry, now I lost the line, it's a very long sentence. With the no AfCFTA scenario. Africa would require, and now it comes, close to 2 million additional trucks, over 100,000 rail wagons, 250 aircraft, and more than 100 vessels by 2030. Alone for trucks, this demand would translate into $345 billion investment needs. I think these figures stand for themselves, and I think they show very well the potential that there is when it comes to that free trade area. I'm now introducing the panelists on our second panel, which will talk more on privatization. We will also try to show a little bit the comparative advantages that we have between the different AU member states. And I would like to begin with my neighbor here to the left, Ambassador Churchill. He is the Cameroonian ambassador to Ethiopia, the African Union, and also the UNECA. Ambassador Churchill and I, we share a common background. We are trained journalists, so two writers met already. But after that, Ambassador Churchill took on a career as a career diplomat. You served, for example, in Russia. You also served here in Ethiopia. And also very important is that you were a technical advisor in the civil cabinet to President Biya in Cameroon. And also very interesting for our conversation is that you were the chair of the subcommittee for structural reforms at the AU Commission. And through this position, you were quite much involved in the entire AfCFTA process, I believe. Thank you so much for joining us. On the screen, we do not only see ourselves, but also Ms. Chiara Felicitas Otto. And Ms. Otto, she is the managing director of AfCFTA consultancy when it comes to export finance. She was very successful with her companies. She can tell us in how many countries she is active here already on the continent. She has received several awards with her companies. She has accomplished more than 150 tender agency assignments. And before becoming self-employed with her company, she worked as a senior project manager and later as a vice president in the area of road and infrastructure at KfW IPEX Bank, which many of you will know. Thank you so much for joining us, Chiara, and I hope you can hear us and also maybe see us very well. Thank you for making this commitment. We understand that you have a few problems right now because you're traveling, but thank you very much for making this commitment and living up to it to be with us. I
Benno?
Yeah.
I hear you perfectly. Everything is fine. It's just that apparently the moderator has switched off my video function, so I can't switch it on from here.
It's totally fine. I continue with Engineer Melaku Izezao. He is the president of the Ethiopian Chamber of Commerce and Sectoral Associations. Before you assumed this role, you were the president of the Amhara Chamber, and you are not only an engineer, but also a businessman. I don't know if this information is still correct, but you used to be the co-owner and general manager of a real estate company. And I also think you had a smaller business when it comes to driving schools. Maybe you can correct me on that later. As we planned to have the CEO of the Pan-African Agribusiness and Agro-Industry Consortium, Ms. Lucy Muchoki, with us today, who unfortunately, due to a sickness, had to cancel with us. She wanted to travel from Kenya, but she could not do so. So she apologizes and greets all of you warmly. We wanted to have someone else also representing business here on the continent, also with a focus on the young generation. And we are happy to have Mr. Precious Piri from Malawi with your business AWAO. You do business in the bamboo area, and we will hear from you about your business, also about the challenges that you might face. And he looks a bit older, but he is 24 years old. Thank you so much for being with us. Ambassador, I would like to start our panel with you. Cameroon is committed to the AfCFTA. Tell us, how far are you in the preparations for this free trade area?
Thank you, moderator, for giving me the floor. And let me begin by also thanking the organizers. First, the UNECA, and also the Konrad Adenauer Foundation. I'm also very happy to be speaking to a non-diplomatic crowd. It's always very important when we assume our roles as public diplomats. Now, with regard to Cameroon, you know, we usually say Cameroon is Africa in miniature. It is not an advert slogan, but that is what it is. We are at the crossroads of West and Central Africa. We are at the crossroads of many cultures and many peoples. And so the AfCFTA could only have been welcomed because it is a major instrument of integration. So I would like to give my talk in 4 points. The first is, where are we? The second is, how did we come there? The third is, what do we still have to do? And then the fourth would be on our normal policy orientations. First, where are we with the AfCFTA process? As you know, Cameroon was one of those countries that signed the AfCFTA agreement in March 2018. And then on the 31st of January 2020, it ratified it. And then on the 1st of December 2021, we deposited the instruments of ratification through your humble speaker. So that is where we are in terms of our adherence to the AfCFTA agreement. Now, how did we come there? Two issues. First, let's look at the awareness creating and advocacy process. And secondly, the institutionalization process. with regard to the awareness building and advocacy process, I will say that first, with the help of the UNECA, there was a stakeholders meeting on the 16th and 17th of April 2019 in Yaoundé, Cameroon. And this stakeholders meeting, they brought together members of the private sector, the academia, and every person, the government, to be properly informed about what the AfCFTA was. And then second, we had a high-level visit from the executive secretary of the ECA, Dr. Vera Sungwa. And she came to Cameroon, which happens also to be her country. And she made a visit between the 18th to the 22nd of April 2019. And during this visit, first, she was received by the head of state, His Excellency Paul Biya, and she used the opportunity to reiterate the need for Cameroon to adhere to this agreement. And then secondly, she had a very important meeting with the International Relations Institute of Cameroon, where we had a lot of scholars and people from all walks of life. And she made a wonderful presentation and lecture on the AfCFTA. Her visit in many ways helped in creating an understanding of what the AfCFTA was. And then after that, we had the economic operators. The economic operators, they organized a conference in Douala, and which also helped them in creating an awareness and an understanding of the AfCFTA process. Then we have think tanks like the CAFU Institute, which also had an important panel discussion on the AfCFTA process, so as to generate interest and understanding. That was in July, and it also had another one in December 2021. But then we had the high mark in terms of generating interest and understanding on the AfCFTA process was a symposium that was organized, at the International Relations Institute of Cameroon on the 23rd to the 25th of November 2021. So all of this helped in generating interest, creating understanding, and so on of the process. Then the second thing now was, how was this internalized? The first is that we created, because of all of this, we created a national AfCFTA strategy, which was adopted in 2020, and then we also had they also created a national AfCFTA follow-up committee, which was in 2021. So you see that with all of this, that is the process, how we came to what I first described, to the situation in which. So there has been a perfect or a growing understanding by the public from various actors on what the CFTA process is all about. And then now, what needs to be done? We are at the level of negotiations, and the negotiations of phase 1 is likely to end, to be concluded this June 2022, and the negotiations on phase 2, which is on investment and all of the things that we know about phase 2, will be concluded in December 2022. Now, what are the policy options and orientations? You know, there are many. We have Cameroon has a set of 10 objectives and policy orientations, which I don't know that would have, but all it means is one, ownership. We have creating the right environment, issues like very important in terms of market access. We one of the things is how to have facilitation with DR Congo and Nigeria. DR Congo, because DR Congo is very important. In addition to our 5 CEMAC regions, DR Congo is important because although it's in ECAS, but you know, DR Congo is in EAC and is also in SADC and Nigeria. So it will open the Cameroonian goods to SADC and the EAC. And then secondly, Nigeria, which is just a neighbor, will open up Cameroonian products to the ECOWAS. So I thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. And I made a mistake between journalists. You should never hand the mic over and lose the mic as the moderator. But now I took it back because I would like to ask you, and I think you did a very good job in outlining how you set the ground for the AfCFTA, how you did advocacy also among your people, also in the administration. But now, since we talk about the private sector, I would like to press you a little bit on the question: what did the Cameroonian government do to bring the private sector on board? What have you been doing so far? What is going on? There's another mic. Engineer, could you help His Excellency? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, the private sector has always been an integral part of Cameroon's economic policy. We have 2 consular chambers, the Chamber of Commerce, Industries, and Mines and Handicraft on the one hand, and we also have the Chambers of Agriculture, Fisheries, Animal Husbandry, and Forest. So there is always an engagement with this the private sector through these chambers. And secondly, we have what we call the professional or employers union. We have the Groupement Interpatronat du Cameroun, which is GCAM. We also have Groupement des Entreprises du Cameroun, ECAM, and we also have the Groupement des Femmes d'Affaires du Cameroun. So these are all employers union and where you have the private sector and we have been engaging, the government has been engaging with them. And then we also have the diaspora. The diaspora usually comes and we have annual meetings in most cases of the diaspora. They call it FODIAC. We also have, even in Germany, we have the DAVOC, which Cameroonian diaspora, they work a lot in terms of mobilizing and playing a role in the AfCFTA. And so the government, as always, we have the doing business in Cameroon, which is a normal forum where the private sector interacts with governments and other stakeholders. And through this, there have always been interchange, exchanges on the role that we have to play in the AfCFTA.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. You build a bridge now, Chambers of Commerce. This is an expression that will lead us naturally to Engineer Melaku, as you represent here the Chamber of Commerce in Ethiopia. I would like to know from you, Mr. Melaku, how do you feel integrated so far here in the negotiations, or also in advocacy building, information building here from the Ethiopian government? We heard the state minister, how important the AfCFTA is also from the Ethiopian government's perspective. So how do you feel, how do the sectors also that you represent feel integrated, and maybe what are some of the inefficiencies or some of the things that should be improved from your perspective?
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers and thank you for inviting me to elaborate my views on this grand agenda AfCFTA. The private sector in Ethiopia, the government believed that it is a backbone of the economy. Because of that, especially when the FTA becomes on the table, in 2018, in March 2018, when the AfCFTA was signed in Rwanda, Kigali, Ethiopia was one of the first countries to sign on it. And the Chamber of Commerce representatives, including me, was at Kigali at that time. After AfCFTA was signed, the representatives of the Ethiopian government, who are the negotiators with other countries, we take some information from them, and also we deliver our positions, so that what are the positions and the standards of the private sector in the negotiating areas. Actually, even though the participation of the private sector is very limited, but with the Ministry of Trade and Industry, the former, the current Ministry of Trade and Integration, we have strong relationship, and we communicate and get the details information. When we go every country for negotiations, we get information. And also the private sector, Ethiopian Chamber of Commerce is the apex organization representing the private sector in Ethiopia. And what we did is that as the private sector in Ethiopia has limited information about AfCFTA, and also some of them also they may not have information, we studied lots of studies, so that what the FTA platform will enable us for the market penetration, what the platform will enable us to enhance export and productivity, what will be the advantage, and so on. And also, by communicating with the government, we studied that in order to use of the opportunity of the AfCFTA, the capacity of the private sector should be enhanced. By doing that, we made awareness creation programs, so that the private sector should be aware of the AfCFTA. And also in my chamber, we made a TOT, training of trainers, so that as we are representing the whole Ethiopian community businesses, we have 18 member chambers, 11 regional chambers, and 7 associations, so that these trainers with this TOT, they will go to around all the country by next year and give the trainings for this. And also with our study, we made a gap. We got the gap, so that how we can work together with the government, and we are making our position. We are telling to the positions, to the policymakers, our positions. That's what we are saying.
Interesting. And you said training of trainers, skills training, capacity training. Can you tell us a little bit more about what are the things that maybe entrepreneurs and the private sector people need maybe to better understand the AfCFTA? And maybe also, I mean, we know that Ethiopia has been doing a lot lately when it comes to privatization, opening some of the economies. So is there something also in relation to that that needs to be learned to fully or to be fully able to embrace the AfCFTA?
What we are making on the TOT is that what is the advantage of AfCFTA as compared to the normal export business? what advantages we may get. As we Ethiopians are a landlocked country, what will be our opportunity in utilizing this AfCFTA? Instead of selling markets to the Chinese, Europeans, and Americans, what we can get an opportunity to make network with the African countries. And also, what are rules, regulations, country of origin, and so on with the AfCFTA. That's what we are making with the trainings. And also, in order to be competitive in the world market, what is needed? Quality, price, production, mass production, and so on. So that the competition in the coming times will not be by each other, but the competition will become internationalized. So the business community should know and make themselves to the international standard to be competent in the AfCFTA market. That's what we are awareing the business community.
Thank you so much. I'm coming now to Chiara, and I have to say that we call each other by the first name because we have been knowing each other also for some time through our engagement in things in relation to Germany and Africa. So we call ourselves by the first name. Chiara, I hope you can still hear us, and I would like to ask you, what are your experiences with trade with Africa? How easy is it also for you or the businesses that you represent to do business in Africa? And maybe you can also let us know in how many countries you are already involved, because this might also be interesting. And now I see we see you.
Yes, meanwhile it works. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you also very much for the very kind introduction. I'm happy to add a little to this. We are specialized financial advisors based in Frankfurt am Main, and we work with a team of 11 across 25 countries across the African continent. So we have quite a strong footprint across the continent. We're happy to do a lot of business from Germany or from Europe into Africa, and also work with African clients in their business development. As I said, we're a team of 11. Within this team, we actually speak 15 languages, including Tigrinya, including Jula, Madang, and Wolof, just to call a couple of them that are, let's say, African languages. And we're happy to do so. And we're more than happy to share this with our clients, as this basically brings them a homey feeling away from home if they're based in Europe. We work mainly with German or European exporters, but we also, as I said, work with African importers. So we actually know both sides, which is probably like a good aspect to share some of our experiences with trade with Africa or trade within Africa. And looking at the question that you just asked me is basically our experiences with trade in Africa, with Africa. I think there are many dimensions that you have to think about. First of all, working in Africa with Africans has a lot of, let's say, like personal or intercultural dimensions. That's important for us, basically being financial advisors, but it's also very important for our clients, being the European or German exporters. You have to be present on the market. There's a very different, let's say, like code of how business is done. And also, as I said, there is language aspect. Like German or European businesses, they have to adjust whenever they want to do trade with Africa, either on the Anglophone or the Francophone side or the Lusophone side. And I think language is one of the keys. As I said, within our team of 11, we speak 15 languages and cover 4 African languages on a level where we would basically say it's native level. That helps a lot in order to eliminate any kind of, let's say, like intercultural or language barrier. On the business side, you have to look at the at all kind of, let's say, like administrative hurdles that are naturally there if you want to export or import or do trade with other countries. That's a natural, but that's not much different if you want to do business in Europe or anywhere else, basically. So you need to get all the permits, you need to get clearance on the customs, on the duties, insurance, and last but not least on the financial side. And that's exactly where we basically, or what our interface is. We work on the financial side, and how easy is it for us to do business in Africa? And all I can basically say is that largely depends on the country. There are some countries where it's easier to structure and arrange financings than in other countries. But as I said, we're active on 25 markets across the continent, and we've been successfully doing that for 11 years. So I think it's not always been easy, but we've managed, and we're happy to be present on the market, and we will expand that in the future.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to immediately connect to that. I was a bit surprised you were less, I wouldn't say critical, but you said so there are things that we are facing, but this is not different from if you were doing business somewhere else. But maybe this is also some image that we have on our mind when we do business, either between Europe and Africa, or Africa and Europe. But of course, also let's imagine a company from Cameroon does business in Ethiopia. This is also very far away, and I think there would be also question marks on the minds of the business people. So I want maybe to ask a bit more precisely. Are there sectors that would have been interesting to some of your clients to engage in if there were less tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers? What are the things that some of your clients face when it comes to that?
I wouldn't really pin it down to sectors, because we work across various sectors. So we have a strong footprint in the, let's say, like healthcare, like exporting healthcare, or in the infrastructure sector. So that basically where our heart beats, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're limited to that. So basically, the greatest, let's say, non-tariff barrier that we come across many times is basically when either we advise on public tender situations, and when we work with the public side and structure the public tenders, or when our clients basically bid in public tender situations. I do have a lot of sympathy for the countries to ask for a high local content quota. I have sympathy for that. There's no doubt, because it's important that parts of the value chain, if possible, can be transferred into the project country. But this can indeed lead to international bidders not being interested to submit a bid, because a high percentage of local content contradicts to regulations of export credit agencies. There's a certain limit that they can support in terms of local content in the project country, and if the high local content quota requested in a tender is too high, then the export credit agency programs will not be applicable, and that may be a big obstacle for international bidders or international tenderers to compete. Also, in many countries, simply you cannot generate the requested local content, as you either cannot procure the materials locally, so they have to be imported, or you may not have a skilled workforce to produce the pre-products you may need, so you will have to import them as well. And that basically gives you quite a bit of a imbalance or of a mismatch in public tender situations. We've seen that many times, and I know it's meant well for the country to have a high quota in local content, but it's also a bit of an obstacle to have a successful tender situation. So this is basically a non-tariff barrier we come across very often, and it's also on the financing side. If a local tender, or if a public tender is against or runs against the export credit agency regulations, it's also a big obstacle for structuring a financing to that.
Thank you. I would like to bring in Precious Depiri from Malawi. And Precious, you focus with your business on the bamboo business. Can you tell us what are some of the challenges that you face, and maybe also bring us a bit in also on your company? Is it a Malawi focused only? Also, do you trade across countries in the region? Tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you. So my name is Precious Tipili. I am from Malawi, Lilongwe. I am also the advisor to International Trade Center in Malawi. So I work with fellow young entrepreneurs in disseminating information, particularly for them to start export trade. And my business, what we do, we make bamboo products. We make kitchen utensils, jewelry from bamboo, as well as furniture and interior design. So we started 2 years ago, and we've grown tremendously over the past 2 years. Our main focus in 3 years' time is to start exporting, and we've already made plans and details towards that. So we do face a lot of the challenges when it comes to export market, because we are looking to that, and also getting this from fellow young people who are into various businesses, who are willing to export. These are the collective challenges that they face. One is access to finance, capital to young entrepreneurs, for them to expand their capacity for export market. Because if you are going into export market, that means there's a lot involved than trading domestically, which has also been a challenge to me personally. I mean, for my business as well. Another challenge is mentorship when it comes to trade and export markets. Fellow young people here would agree with me that in their respective countries, the issue of export is not talked a lot. I'm talking this to in regards to SMEs, startups. This is not considered a lot, and organizations don't train young people in exports, in export markets. Another challenge is there's been a lack of exchange programs. For example, my fellow young entrepreneurs here from Nigeria would agree with me that in regards to AfCFTA, in Nigeria, there's a lot of information in terms of that, AfCFTA and export. As compared to Malawi and some parts of Southern Africa, from where I'm from, Zambia, South Africa, Zambia, you talk of Mozambique. And if we do have exchange programs, organizations helping young people to go to Nigeria, to go to Ethiopia, to learn about how other young entrepreneurs are benefiting from AfCFTA, and just the information there will be very helpful. And another thing is awareness. That's one of the challenges. Clarity, there's no clarity of information when it comes to AfCFTA, at least from where I'm coming from. A lot of youth don't know about it, as compared to Ghana, and other countries. And at ITC, year community, we are trying to impart our fellow youth with this information, and we would like organizations, international organizations and governments to teach the youth and on how best we can go about it. Another thing is the challenges in inclusion in policies. Young people do not take part in policies. At least I know from Malawi, when we do have certain events, we will find a few young people that are there, and we need to engage young people from the grassroots up there, businesses which are bigger but owned by young people. All these should come together and not just focusing on one type of businesses. And another thing is I would add is lack of speed in terms of legislations. For example, my business, we are into nature-based solutions to fight single-use plastic products, and also just to offer authentic interior design that are products that are eco-friendly. And with this, it's a challenge because a lot of young people now are bringing new ideas, and new ideas will come forth. And legislations, and if you find these other products and services, you find that they're not there in the books of legislation, such as certifications. And then it takes a lot of time, and young people give up on these ideas because they cannot find legislations, or the time is long. So new ideas need speed in terms of certifications and help. Another thing I would conclude, I would also like to concur with my fellow young entrepreneur there. She spoke about something, and then also Mr. Salam from Nigeria Investment Promotion, that we need to be empowered practically. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. DeFury. And I think some of the things that you highlighted, things that you need more, or things that do not work for you so well at the moment, could also go into something that was highlighted by Professor Malaku earlier on, that the UNECA recently developed the African Country Business Index, which is an opportunity for the private sector to also bring to the attention of legislators, decision makers, things that do not work so well at the moment, that need to be addressed by the governments. It might not be the only solution. There are others. We heard from Mr. Kangis also about the importance of healthy and ongoing dialogues between governments, the associations. So this might be something that could be dealt with more on the national level. But I think this was also important to point out. You feel that I press a little bit the speed button, and I do so on purpose because I'm looking a bit on the time, because I want to have more of a discussion with our audiences virtually and here in the hall. However, before we close our panel, I would like to ask our four panelists a bit about the potential. So maybe each one of you could talk for 1 minute about the potential that could be promoted or could be supported through the AfCFTA. It can be a sector. So any question to Cameroon would be which sectors, which industry could thrive much more with under the AfCFTA. The similar question could go to Engineer Malaku, and then to our two business people. It would be interesting to know what you hope for when the AfCFTA is in full play. Your Excellency.
Yeah, thank you. Well, in terms of sectors, I would like to say that if we have to promote the SME sector, it is going to work, it's going to enhance the implementation of the AfCFTA, the small and medium-sized enterprises. They are a major engine of the economy. In Cameroon, for instance, we have over 4,000 SMEs, which if we invest on them, they can provide the necessary backup. There are many other things. The youths are inside the SMEs, the women are inside the SMEs. So, but my main focus is we should try to promote the SME sector, because that is the engine. And it will generate wealth. It's going to create. They'll have the capacity to work on the export sector. So I think for now, if there's one sector we should promote, I mean, I'm talking about Cameroon. It should be the SME sector, that because of a lot of things that it interacts. It's cross-cutting. You know, one of the what we can see as a future of the AfCFTA is that there is a growing middle class in Africa. And so when you have the SME sector, it is going to exploit that, and it is going to create the necessary type of wealth. So I would like to focus on that, because that's the engine.
Thank you so much. Engineer Malaku, which industries in Ethiopia could benefit a lot under the AfCFTA?
Thank you very much. As Ethiopia is an agrarian country and much of the population is dependent on agriculture, we have comparative advantage on agriculture, especially coffee, vegetables, oilseeds, and so on are the potential areas for Ethiopia. The other thing, Ethiopia has a comparative advantage in the textile and leather sector. The Ethiopia government has a plan to make Ethiopia for the hub of textile. So we have developed so many industrial parks for textiles. And because of that, and also we are a cotton country, we have good potential in this area. But the main thing, especially when we consider about AfCFTA, even though we are rich in agriculture sector and naturally gifted with all these natural things, without value addition, development cannot be achieved. So we are rich in agriculture, we are rich in livestock, we are rich in mining, we are rich in different sectors. But by utilizing this naturally gifted, by developing this and value addition, we can be beneficial with AfCFTA. Especially now on the value addition side, textile and garment and leather sector is becoming good. And also the mining sector nowadays, the Ethiopia government with the private sector is doing good in the mining sector with minerals. That's in a good phase. The other thing, especially light manufacturing sectors should be developed, as my friend said, in the small and medium enterprises. We should utilize all of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Defiri, how would you potentially benefit a lot more from the AfCFTA? What would improve for you?
Okay. Can you repeat the question? So,
how would you benefit directly with your business from the AfCFTA? What would improve for you?
Okay, so would benefit a lot from AfCFTA in terms of the information that AfCFTA provides, and also on how would also benefit on how, I mean, a lot of young people would agree with me that value added products, as he said, will be key in AfCFTA in terms of export and trade between countries, and the programs and everything else, if it's focused on improving value-added products, would benefit a lot. Trainings, mentorships, as I said, inclusion in policies and others.
Thank you very much. Chiara, how would the situation improve for you, your clients, under the AfCFTA?
We are very much in favor of the agreement, definitely, and I'm convinced that it will be a success. Enabling regional or international trade is always a key to enable economic growth and to lay a foundation for development. And what you said in the beginning, that it is expected that this could lead to additional inter-African growth by 28%. It's something I'm pretty convinced of, but this has to be accompanied by infrastructure. So by roads, by railways, by transport infrastructure for easier transportation. And then it will be an accelerator, creating employment and new economic hubs, potentially even at places we don't even think about today. A common tariff scheme will make the administration also a lot easier, also for international clients or international importers into those countries, as well as for the importing entities in Africa itself. And it will basically significantly lower the prices for those imported goods, and it will enable exports of excess production once this is available. And from an economic perspective, I believe there are only benefits basically of the removal of the trade barriers and tariff barriers basically. And there are good examples worldwide where countries lowering or removing the tariff schemes have seen economic growth afterwards, totally overcompensating the losses, if you want to call it that way, that they made from lack in tariff income. So I'm very sure that the agreement itself will be an economic success once it'll be in place.
Thank you so much. Time for questions. I think we should allow ourselves 15 to 20 good minutes. Let's see how this works for us. I would now first of all collect maybe 2 questions from the room. I have already one from our virtual audience. I see one hand there at the table. Could someone help us with a microphone? And then let me look around. Is there a second question already? There is another hand. All right, we take those 2 questions.
I can go. Thank you so much, everybody. My name is Lawa Nebukamu Hulela, and I'm a senior advisor of the Youth Alliance for Leadership and Development in Africa. My full-time job, I'm an infrastructure investor across the African continent, investing in power production, transport, and ICT. Chaira just mentioned in her closing remarks that transport-related infrastructure is very important for the success and implementation of the AfCFTA. And so for me, one of the things that constantly is lacking in the discussions is what is being done about infrastructure and to finance infrastructure, because without it, we need to manage expectations of how this is going to be implemented. For example, Honorable Ambassador mentioned DRC Congo connecting to SADC. One of my big projects is the 2 Congo Bridge that will connect Kinshasa to Brazzaville. It's taken us years to get the 2 governments to discuss and to come up with an agreement. And in fact, even now we're trying to find a strategic investor. And this is a $400 million project that has been in the works for a long, long time. These things take time. And with the AfCFTA, it's going to take time to implement it if the infrastructure situation is not addressed. Secondly, I just want to mention SME promotions. To export small number of goods or quantity of goods is very, very difficult. And what are we doing to manage expectations of the SMEs and young entrepreneurs? Because it's going to be very expensive and literally impossible because of the cost of transportation. So we talk about SMEs all the time, but we're not talking about the realities that exporting small goods is very difficult. So how is it going to be that we can do bulk purchases, bulk transportation, or maybe piggyback on the backs of larger corporations to take the SMEs along? And my last comment would be, what are the timelines for the AfCFTA? They're not communicated properly. The young people who have heard about the AfCFTA think it's already in action, where that is far from the truth. So when is it going to be in action? What are the timelines looking like? What are the goods that are going to be traded? Which goods are not being traded? So we just need proper information and facts about what is going on, again, to manage expectations, because where I sit, we are over-promising and we are at a risk of under-delivering. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think those were 2 comments, maybe on the last comment of the 3 comments on the last comment, maybe. I think we still have acting, Director Chiumia there. Let me collect the second question first, and then we let you react directly. And then I will come with the third question. Yeah, please.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Abayomi Salami from Nigeria once again. I would like to commend what the Afrexim Bank has already put in place in terms of a Pan-African payment and settlement platform for the purpose of easy transaction in financial transaction for the AfCFTA private sector organizations, so as to overcome the difficulties of changing our local currency to the dollars or other European euros or other denominations. That's for that. Then I would like to say for maximization of the opportunities of the what the AfCFTA has already created, there will be need for every country to look inward, because most of the things that we have, almost all African countries are agri-based economy, and they have so many things in common. So everyone need to look at what make them have comparative advantage over the others. Even when you look at the agriculture, when you look at the mining, when you look at the others or other sectors. Now, for instance, there may be need. There are certain countries that are already emerged and created a niche in certain areas. South Africa is known for manufacturing of vehicles. So they need to concentrate and improve on that to be able to take advantage of the market. While Nigeria is already doing well in the financial sector, in the entertainment industries, as well as in the telecoms. So, as well as other countries like that. So for maximum, each country need to look inward in order not to make their country to become a dumping ground by looking inward and planning around, sectorizing their national development plan along areas where they have comparative and competitive advantage, so that they will be able to derive benefits from the market that has been created. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would now let Acting Director Chiyumya on the question of the timeline, expectation management.
Well, I'm not the director.
I'm sorry. This was, maybe I'm short-sighted
Sorry.
already.
Sorry. Let me just quickly make 2 points. I think in terms of the question of the infrastructure thing, I think NEPAD or AUDA is looking into it, and I think you're right that it's the connection between Brazza and Kinshasa has been something which has been in the works for a long time, and it will be good that it is addressed so that it will help the central corridor, the corridors which the distinguished ambassador is talking about. I think you're right in the sense that for the question on what goods are being traded, I think if you look into the AfCFTA Secretariat website, they're trying to develop and to let people know what can be traded in. So I think that's a good place that you could go to get that information. But I agree with you that we have to do more in terms of manage expectations, so that it doesn't appear that the AfCFTA would be the solutions to all our problems. That is true, but certainly it will relieve a lot of our challenges and make things better. This is my own interpretation. I'm not Chumi, I don't speak for the AU. But let me just quickly put into 2 things that I think I wanted to say. And Honorable Ambassador, I don't always get the opportunity to be around ambassadors. So let me just put in one thing which I want you to do for me, or to do for us: the African passport, the common passport, because it doesn't make sense for Africans to have difficulties to travel within Africa. People might plot themselves and say that, well, Ethiopia, Ghana, Cameroon, what have you, they give visa on arrival. But the visa on arrival is expensive. So I have a formula for you, sir. You know, let's take a playbook from ECOWAS. And ECOWAS has 15 countries, right? Every country issues its own passport. They put ECOWAS and then they put Ghana. So let's have the same format. Go to ICAO, go to wherever we have to go to get the passport accepted. Let's have Ethiopia, African Union. Ghana, African Union becomes the passport. When you do that, you've solved the problem of free movement of persons. I don't think it requires us to go to the EU to do that. It doesn't require us to go to the World Bank to look for money for us. This is an easy thing that would help. But I know people will say, no, don't do that. Because if you give passport, AU passport to everybody, then in this case, EU will say, the guys are going to come easily and come to Libya and look for the boats to go to, Europe. But let's face the facts. Africa, there's more migration within Africa than Africans going outside. The misconception is that Africans are going outside. I'll end on the note for my advice for my Ethiopian friends, which I always tell them. You say, coffee is the best in the world. You have coffee. Coffee in Ethiopia, in Addis, sells like maybe $1. Coffee in New York or in Canada in Starbucks sells for $7. I'm just telling you just an example what you need to do. For coffee, use the CFTA, make sure that coffee gets into every capital in Africa. So if you do that, with 1.3 billion people, let's say 100 million drinks coffee every morning, let's say even if your net profit is 25 cents, $25 million in the hands of Ethiopians every morning. So why look elsewhere? You have used the CFTA to sell your coffee. It's the best in the world. I'm from Ghana. I don't see Ethiopian coffee in Ghana. Why? You have ET going to Ghana every morning. So why can't you get the coffee and negotiate and get coffee across? You fly 48 countries. ET flies to 48 countries in Africa. Why don't you take advantage? You don't need such a meeting to be able to do that. That will be my contribution to this discussion.
Thank you very much. And I think I don't see Acting Director Chiyumya anymore, but I think the comment that you shared is potentially something that many people also share, that they don't really know when does this free trade zone will be realized. So we take this as a comment and we take note of it. I would like to let Ambassador Churchill react to some of the things that were said just now. And then I already saw another hand over there and another hand over there, and then we will have a look at the time.
All right, thank you. Let me start with your last question. The last question that you've just raised again, reiterated. The AfCFTA trading started on 1st January 2021. That is officially. So as from 1st January 2020 started. Then on the issue of I commend my friend from Ghana on the explanation he gave about NEPAD and the infrastructure. But I would like to say that you can actually drive now from Kinshasa to Cameroon. Once you cross the Congo, and I think that is where her question is very relevant. Once you cross the question, we have the Oweso-Sangmelima highway from Congo Brazzaville to Cameroon, and it is a perfect. So from there, people leave from Kinshasa now. They just move across the river and then they move straight to Cameroon. So I think it is possible with time. But then the issue of infrastructure is very important. And I think it is the elephant in the house. We in Semak region, for instance, apart from, we have been talking about the Douala, Jamena or Douala Bangui railway for a long time. It has not been actualized. Even when we talk about the air transport, just talking air Semak or air whatever to integrate a certain region, you realize that it is still difficult. So infrastructure is a major issue when it comes to integration generally, and also to the, when concerning the actualization of the AfCFTA. There was also the issue of the SME and how can the SMEs actually have the capacity to generate the type of exports and so on. Now, in most countries, they've been having SME banks, which can provide the necessary financing and so on. And as I say, most of the growing middle class and youth, they get involved in the SME sector. So through that, they can get in almost all the other sectors. You know, as I said, that's the engine. They can go into textile, they can go into agriculture, they can go into manufacturing, they can go into in small quantities, but then they can still aggregate, you know, and I think there are some countries that have this type of associations of SMEs that can do mass exportation. So those are some of the issues. I don't know. Well, the issue of communication, awareness building, and so on. That can. I mean, you are preaching to the converted. I am a communication person, as my friend also said. One of the problems we will have is that of communication, because even in the AfCFTA structure as it is today, the Secretariat, there is no real unit in charge of communication. So I think we will have, they have a policy review and research division, but there is no division, no unit that is supposed to take care of popularization of whatever the activities and whatever the AfCFTA is doing. So I think that is something that we will live with for a very long time, and we hope that the national committees are going to come in to fill that gap. So thank you.
Do you want to add something? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Especially on the infrastructure side, you know, a reliable and well-functioning transport network system should have, logistics system should be on table. It is critical for countries, especially like Ethiopia, who are landlocked. So other countries, even who are not landlocked, that's a very critical one. Two things I want to say on the final deliberation. Number one, the private sector representatives of each African countries should study and have position paper on the advantages of, on the comparative advantages of their country to the policymakers and to the government, because most of the countries, the negotiators are the government persons. So each private sector should have position paper to make that. The other thing, there must be an information center of each African country so that we can make a network. For example, it is said that there is coffee in Ethiopia, other thing in Ghana, Kenya, Rwanda, Somalia, and so on and so on. So when we make a network, there must be a central information center so that we can make and buy and sell. It means we need to have an African Alibaba for us. In doing that, the trade may be easy. Thank you very much.
I think those were very important points. Thank you very much for that. I would now, for the end, take the two last questions. One was over there, and the last one is over there.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nancy Gitonga. I'm the CEO, African Women's Entrepreneurship Program, Kenya. I'm also a businesswoman. I'm in manufacturing, export, and import. I am a women's advocate, and so I represent millions of women doing business in Africa. I am quickly looking at what we are calling the phase 2 of AfCFTA, and I'm advised investments, intellectual property rights, women and youth are the main agendas in the phase 2. Without rubbing the wrong side of anyone, I'm very disappointed as a women's advocate, as a businesswoman. The two sessions, I did not see a woman, yet we are saying phase 2 is going to address the women. please, in future, let us be a little bit sensitive when we are selecting, when we are having people who are going to speak in such forums. The women's voice is very important. We are the practitioners, we are the business women, we are paying the government taxes, we know where it is acting, even as I sit here. And so are other women in business. Having said that, allow me to say this. For AfCFTA to work, whether we like it or not, our governments, they have to create that enabling environment. Private sector, very cool, but we are regulated by the government. It doesn't matter what business I'm doing. I must align myself to the government rules, regulations, policies, and the law. Otherwise, I have to shut my company. So what am I saying? And allow me to give an example. Where I come from, fuel is going up every 2 weeks. Last night, fuel went up by 9 shillings. So whatever goods I had quoted for, or whatever business I'm quoted for in my factory, and I am supposed to supply to my customer next week, I can't make any profit. I'm not in control of the fuel. So I had other issues, and you know, I'm not only looking into things like fuel, I'm also looking at the interest rates. Even where we are doing some of the businesses, you get in there, you're told there's no foreign currency. Yet, where I'm manufacturing and doing my import and export, I'm using the US dollar. It is, we please, and I'm speaking like a businesswoman, we got to address this thing from the grassroots, not from the boardroom. If it has to work, let us work backwards and see where it is happening, where can we improve, who is supposed to do what. Private sector, we are ready, and we are law abiding, we are business people, we want to make our profits. We know, and we really must toe the line. But then there are these external things that we cannot control. The government, it is the one that is regulating us. It is the one that is creating that environment. Whether we like it or not, we must speak it as it is. The governments have to create an enabling environment. It's very cool. The common, the customs issues, tariff barriers, whatever it is. But if the manufacturer there is not able to manufacture enough goods, so what are they going to send across the border? I submit.
Thank you very much. Very strong message. And we also take note of your comment on more inclusion of women. Of course, we had 2 of them here on our panel. One unfortunately was sick, but of course this is not enough. But this is also, I mean, I'm also open with you. Sometimes a reality that we face when it comes to selecting panelists, because yes, we are not there where it should be, but this is also, I can say, something that we face in the country, for example, where I come from. So there is definitely room for improvement. I take now the last question back there, or a comment also.
Yeah, good evening, comrades. My name is Ivan Tuyambe. I live and work in Arusha with young people on the continent. I want to pick up from my sister there to say that governments do not do business. Yeah, the private sector does business. What government does is facilitate the business to do well and to create opportunities for others. So what I want to raise here is one question to us. I know we are talking about the CFTA and the private sector, and I wanted to ask, we know that the CFTA will increase intra-African trade, and at the moment it is staggering between 21 and 18%. And in fact, due to COVID-19, it is currently estimated to be anywhere between 18 and 16%. But my question is, if we talk about the percent as a whole, do we know, for example, who constitutes this percent? Is it the women in trade? and what are they trading in? What are their issues that we can help them under the CFTA? Is it the youth in trade? What are they trading in? Where are they? And what successes do they have? What challenges do remain that people like Cass and others can help them to do better in trade? My feeling is that we don't practice the KYC, the know your customer, as policymakers, and even with the CFTA, we are generalizing things. So we need to look at the KYC of the constituencies that CFTA will support. And I think in this, I want to speak for the young people. I'm leaving the bracket next year, April. I'll be turning 36. I'll not speak again in a forum like this. We have just produced a report that speaks for the young people. It's making the AfCFTA promises a reality for African young people. We have some copies. My friends are down here, they can share. But know your customer. We are generalizing a lot. And my sister, I thank you for raising the issue. If we are not constituting and looking at Africans as a homogeneous group, it's going to land us somewhere that is not to be satisfying. So I want to ask you on the panel there, out of the 21% intra-African trade, how many percent is for women? How many percent is for young people? Do you know? If you don't know, we need to think more. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I may want to say that when it comes to what is this big global number, who is in there, I would like to also link to some of the papers that the UNACA puts out there. So they wrote a lot on the AfCFTA. They look, of course, more to sectors than maybe to demographic groups, and but there are somehow well-defined numbers which sectors would benefit more than others. And when it comes to demographics, I think, this is only my assumption, but since we have a very young population in general here on the continent, which in most of the countries represents more than 60%, and under of them, 60 of those 60%, many or most of them are younger than 25 years. My assumption would be that many of the beneficiaries, to use that term, would be young people. But His Excellency wanted also to react.
Thank you. Let me react to the two issues that have been raised. The one on the need for a common currency. I think that is a major issue. One of the outcomes of a panel discussion by the Kafu Institute in Cameroon on the 2nd of July 2021 also raised that issue. And I thank my sister for putting it across again here. Secondly, the issues raised on the role of the women and the youth by the two speakers, I think they are very relevant. But what I would like to say is, for now, let's see how the AfCFTA Secretariat operates and see how they address these issues. Because in the structure of the AfCFTA Secretariat, there is a Department of Institutional Matters and Program Coordination. And within that department, you have a division in charge of women and youth in trade and SMEs. So addressed by the division and SMEs. And as I said, SME is the key, because within SME, if we have to promote the SMEs, the youth will be there, the women will be there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I think we're very much on time. It's 6 p.m. now. It's time now for another nice part of today. After our panel discussion, for those who are here, we all invite you to have a glass with us, maybe eat something. We have a reception. I would also point out that would be great for us if you like that discussion. It was not easy because AfCFTA is big, it's abstract, right? There are so many different things that need to be integrated, but we have an evaluation form. I think you will find it on the back of the program, right? There is a QR code, you can scan it. I think we tried it. It will take you 2 to 3 minutes of your precious time. It would be a pleasure if you could fill out that evaluation form. Otherwise, I would just want to point out that we will produce an event report with some of the things that were said today, some also of the criticism and comments by the audience. So we will share this on our 2 websites and also produce other things. So thank you very much to our panelists, Ambassador Engineer, Mr. Fury, and also Chiara Felicitas Otto. I think this was great. And I think, yeah, my takeaway, one of them is communication is a key word in both directions, governments to private sector to governments. And yeah, I'm looking forward to other discussions in the same area. We would like to look in the future more towards the different RECs, go a bit more down on the regional level. Now we were a lot at the continental level. But yeah, so please be with us, follow our activities, and I really thank you for coming and attending this event today. Thank you very much.